Close your eyes for a second and try to imagine this. It is the 9th minute of the 2026 World Cup, the largest football tournament ever played in the history of the sport. 80,000 people packed inside the Estadio Azteca in Mexico City. The air is thick with noise and heat and something harder to name, something that feels like anticipation mixed with dread. This crowd has been waiting for this moment. Some of them have been waiting their entire lives. And then a low shot threaded through the legs of the goalkeeper. Net. The stadium doesn't just erupt, it detonates. And somewhere in that crowd, someone is already crying, because for Mexico, for this stadium, for this tournament, that wasn't just a goal. It was the end of something that had been haunting them for 96 years. My name is Archer, and this is the story of day one of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. And I promise you the scoreline, Mexico 2, South Africa 0, does not come close to telling the full story. Today we're going to cover the historic stadium that made it all possible, the curse that Mexico finally broke after nearly a century of trying, the 3 red cards that almost flipped the entire script, and one man, a man who was told by doctors that he was lucky to just be alive, who ended the night on his knees in tears, scoring his first ever World Cup goal in front of his entire nation. Stay with me. This one's worth it. Let's start with the stage, because before we talk about what happened on June 11, we need to talk about where it happened. And I think a lot of people watching football right now don't fully appreciate what the Estadio Azteca actually is. It opened in 1966, built in a neighborhood called Santa Ursula on the southern edge of Mexico City. When construction was completed, it could hold over 100,000 people, making it one of the largest stadiums ever built at that point. But capacity is just a number. What makes the Azteca different isn't its size, it's what it has witnessed. In 1970, Mexico hosted the World Cup, and the Azteca hosted the final. Brazil's squad that year, Pelé, Jairzinho, Carlos Alberto, were operating at a level that genuinely looked like a different sport. Pelé lifted the Jules Rimet trophy on pit. It was the 3rd and final World Cup win of his career, and the image of him hoisting that trophy in the Azteca became one of the defining photographs in the history of football. But that same 1970 tournament also gave us what many people still call the greatest individual match in World Cup history, the semi-final between Italy and West Germany. It finished 4-3 after extra time, 4 goals in extra time. Players visibly cramping, barely standing, running on nothing but adrenaline. Italy won and went to the final, where they lost to Brazil 4-1. But the Italy-West Germany game, played right here at the Azteca, became known as the game of the century. That nickname has stuck for over 50 years. Then, 1986, Mexico host again. Diego Maradona walks into the Azteca for the quarter-final against England and produces what is still, even after everything we've seen in football in the 4 decades since the most discussed 10 minutes the game has ever produced, the Hand of God goal. And then, in the same match, what FIFA officially voted the goal of the century, a run from his own half, past 5 England players, that ended with the ball in the net, and Maradona looking like a man who had just done something he himself couldn't quite believe. Both goals. Same match, same stadium. Argentina went on to win the 1986 World Cup. Maradona lifted the trophy at the Azteca. His name is woven into the identity of this place, in a way that goes beyond football. So when people say the Azteca is just a stadium, I want you to remember all of that. This is the only venue on earth where both Pelé and Maradona lifted the World Cup trophy. It has now hosted matches at 3 different World Cups, 1970, 1986 and 2026, which makes it the first and only stadium in history to do that. No other ground is even close. Ahead of this tournament, the Azteca was renovated. New hybrid pitch surface, over 2,200 metres of new LED screen, better acoustics, updated speaker systems. The bones are still the same structure that hosted the game of the century, but the experience inside has been completely overhauled. And on the evening of June 11, 2026, 80,000 people filed in to see what the next chapter would look like. Now let's talk about the curse, because this is the part of the story that gives the whole night its emotional texture. Mexico had played in 7 World Cup opening matches before June 11, 7, and their record across those 7 games, 5 defeats, 2 draws, 0 wins, not 1 victory in 96 years of trying. Let me walk you through it, because the pattern is almost comedic in how consistent it is. 1930, Uruguay, the very first World Cup, Mexico versus France, a 4-1 defeat. Mexico do score their first ever World Cup goal. Juan Carreno gets it, but they lose heavily. Fine, it's the first ever World Cup. Nobody really knows what they're doing yet. 1931, Brazil, Mexico versus Brazil, 4-0. The host nation, the roaring home crowd, and Mexico barely get a look in. 1932, Switzerland, Mexico versus Brazil again, 5-0 this time. 1933, Sweden, Mexico versus Sweden, the hosts, 3-0. Are you seeing the pattern? Mexico keep getting drawn against the host nation in the first game and getting absolutely hammered. 1962, Chile, Mexico versus Brazil, again 2-0. 1963, and this is the one that really stings. Mexico are the hosts, they're playing in the Azteca, the whole country is watching, and they draw 0-0 with the Soviet Union. No win, still not broke. A draw is better than a loss, but it's not what you want from a home open. And then 2010, South Africa host, Mexico's opening game against South Africa, the host nation. 1-1, another draw, still no win. So when the 2026 big straw is made, and it becomes clear that Mexico will open their home World Cup against South Africa, the exact same team they drew with 16 years earlier. The conversation in Mexican football circles becomes, can they finally, at the 8th attempt, break this thing? Coach Javier Aguirre was asked about the curse at his pre-match press conference, and his response was genuinely brilliant. He said, "I did not know about that, but I'll mention it to the guys. It's a good reason to tell them we need to go out there and win the match," which is either very deliberate sports psychology or an honest admission that he hadn't done his homework on the historical record. Either way, he's right. And his players knew. The 80,000 people in the Azteca knew. The whole country watching at home knew. This wasn't just an opening match. It was a 96-year-old bill coming due. Before the football even started, Mexico threw an opening ceremony that set the tone for what kind of tournament this is going to be. Shakira performed, including the official tournament song. Andrea Bocelli was there. Mexican-American songwriter Lila Downs welcomed the world in 4 languages: Spanish, English, Mixtec, and Nahuatl. Salma Hayek made a surprise appearance. For a tournament being hosted across 3 countries, Mexico, the United States, and Canada, the ceremony was a statement of intent. This is not just a football tournament. This is a cultural event on a scale the sport has never seen before. And then the match. Mexico in their traditional green, South Africa in yellow, appearing in a World Cup for the first time since 2010. The noise inside the Azteca from the first whistle is something you have to hear to believe. 9 minutes in, Julian Quinones threads a low shot through the legs of South Africa goalkeeper Rowan Williams, 1-0. The first goal of the 2026 World Cup. The Azteca detonates. Goal number 1 of 104. South Africa aren't without threat in the first half. They press well, get into Mexico's half, and test a backline that looks nervy at times. But the scoreline holds going into half-time, and then the second half becomes something completely different. South Africa's Sfeifelo Sithole is shown a red card. 10 men. Mexico have the numerical advantage. This should be straightforward from here. Then South Africa's Themba Zwane is also dismissed. 9 men now. At this point, South Africa are playing against odds that make completing the match feel like an achievement in itself. And then the twist. Mexico's Cesar Montes, in stoppage time, is also sent off. Mexico finished the game with 10 men as well, just minutes after South Africa go down to 9. 3 red cards. In a World Cup opening, that has never happened before, not once in the history of the tournament. It is, officially, a record. The kind of trivia that will appear in football quizzes for the next 3 decades. 3 red cards, 2 goals, 1 opening night, 1 Azteca, and then the second goal arrives. And this is where the match stops being about football entirely. Raúl Jiménez heads the ball home, Mexico 2-0, and then the cameras find his face, and he is on his knees, tears running down his face, completely uncontrolled, his arm pointing to the sky. If you don't know the story of Raúl Jiménez, I need you to hear it, because it is one of the most remarkable stories this sport has ever produced. November 29, 2020. Wolverhampton Wanderers are playing Arsenal at the Emirates Stadium. Premier League football. Raúl Jiménez, Mexico's starting striker, one of the most dangerous centre-forwards in England at the time, goes up for a header in the 5th minute. He clashes heads with Arsenal defender David Luiz. The sound of the collision is audible on the broadcast. Jiménez falls to the ground and does not move. Players from both teams free. Wolves manager Nuno Espirito Santo later described what happened in the moments that followed. He heard the words "code red" being called. He saw his players' faces go white with shock. There was more than 10 minutes of medical treatment pitch, then a stretcher, then a hospital. The diagnosis was a fractured skull. Jiménez was taken into emergency surgery that same night. He has said in interviews since that he has no memory of the collision or the hours that followed, only waking up in hospital confused, his family around him, not entirely sure what had happened. The doctors were honest with him. They told him it was a miracle he had survived, not a figure of speech, a genuine medical assessment, that the outcome could very easily have been fatal. And they told him that there was a real possibility he might never return to professional football. Jiménez's response, which he has spoken about publicly, was that he never entertained the idea of stopping. "I always thought it was like an ankle injury or a knee injury," he said. "After my recovery, I'll be back to do what I love," which is either remarkable optimism or remarkable stubbornness or both. But it worked. He returned to competitive football for Wolves roughly 8 months later. He has worn a protective headband, a custom-fitted guard for every match since. He moved to Fulham. He kept scoring, he kept earning Mexico caps, and he played in 4 World Cups: 2014, 2018, 2022, and 2026. But across the first 3 of those tournaments, across a decade of international football at the highest level, Raúl Jiménez had never scored a World Cup goal. Not once. 3 tournaments. 0 goal. It was the one thing missing from the story. And then a few months before the 2026 tournament began, his father passed away after an illness. So on June 11th, 2026, a 35-year-old man with a protective headband and a scar from emergency brain surgery, who had buried his father earlier in the year, walked out at the Azteca, the same stadium where Pelé and Maradona made history, and scored his first ever World Cup goal with a header, with his head, the same head that fractured on a pitch in London in 2020 and nearly ended everything. And then he dropped to his knees and pointed to the sky. The cameras caught it, the crowd felt it, and for a moment, the scoreline and the red cards and the tournament standing, and all of it became completely irrelevant. What was left was just a man on his knees in the place he dreamed of, doing the thing he was told he might never do again, thinking thinking about his father. That is what football can be sometimes. That is the part of this sport that makes it impossible to look away. Stepping back for a moment, what does day one actually mean for the tournament picture? Mexico sit at the top of Group A with 3 points. They face South Korea next on June 18th in Guadalajara. South Africa, now with 2 players suspended from red cards, face Czechia in Atlanta on the same day. The group is wide open beyond Mexico's strong start. The other game on day one, South Korea versus Czechia in Guadalajara, produced a 2-1 South Korea comeback win. Czechia led through a header from Ladislav Krejci. South Korea equalised through Hwang In-beom, and then substitute Oh Hyun-gyu, who had come on for Son Heung-min, headed home the winner in the 81st minute. A dramatic match in its own right, though the atmosphere in Guadalajara couldn't match what happened in Mexico City. The broader picture is this: 48 teams, 104 matches, 3 host nations, 39 days. It is by every statistical measure the largest World Cup in history. The debate around whether the expanded format helps or hurts the quality of the tournament will run for the next 5 weeks. Day one alone produced chaos, history, record-setting red cards, and a genuinely emotional moment that will be talked about for years. That's a promising start. Mexico 2, South Africa 0, 3 red cards, a record that will stand until someone beats it. A stadium hosting a World Cup for the 3rd time, the only one in history to do so, a 96-year curse broken on home soil in front of 80,000 people, and a 35-year-old striker with a titanium plate in his skull, crying on his knees on the pitch where Pele and Maradona made their names, scoring his first ever World Cup goal and pointing to the sky for his father. If the 2026 World Cup keeps producing nights like this one, we are going to be absolutely fine. I'll be covering this tournament properly. Every major match, every big story, every moment worth talking about. If you want to follow along, subscribe and hit the bell. I'll be here every few days for the next 5 weeks. And drop a comment below. Who are you backing to win it? Argentina defending, France finally closing one out. A dark horse nobody's talking about yet. I'll see you in the next one.